It might have taken a while, but this Sunday, Rishi Sunak finally sacked his disgraced party chair, Nadeem Zahawi. The sacking followed the publication of a scathing report into the former Chancellor's tax affairs. That report was by Sunak's ethics advisor, who took less than a week to find that Zahawi had breached the ministerial code a full 7 times. So those breaches include his failure to declare that he was under investigation by HMRC when he took up various ministerial posts, including that of Chancellor. Zahawi also failed to declare that he'd paid a tax avoidance penalty thought to be around £1 million until earlier this month. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Zahawi accepted his sacking, but has also made absolutely no apology. So, did Sunak act fast enough to stop his own reputation from being tarnished? Sky's Beth Rigby asked him that question on a visit to Darlington.
This week will mark 100 days of your premiership. Here you are talking about the NHS, but your tenure in number 10 has been more characterised about sleaze than sound government. Are you frustrated or furious even about Nadeem Zahawi's conduct and the damage it's done to you personally and your government? Thank you.
So look, on the second one, right, what I've done is follow a process, which is the right process. Integrity is really important. To me, all of you guys want to see that government's run properly, that it's run with integrity, and there's accountability when people don't behave in a way that they should or when something doesn't go right, and that's what we've done. So we have an independent advisor. That's what the government has. So it's not me who's doing it. And what I asked when all these questions started coming to light about Nadeem Zahawi, I asked the independent advisor to get to the bottom of it and to provide me with the facts. And then on the basis of the facts, which he did relatively quickly over the course of last week, I was able to make a very quick decision that it was no longer appropriate for Nadeem Zahawi to continue in government, and that's why he's no longer there. That's what I've done. It relates to things that happened well before I was Prime Minister, so unfortunately I can't change what happened in the past. What you can hold me accountable for is, like, what did you do about it? What I did as soon as I knew about the situation was appoint somebody independent, looked at it, got the advice, and then acted pretty decisively.
Sunak was putting a lot of weight on his decisiveness there. He was singing a very different tune less than 2 weeks ago when his spokesman said that Zahawi, quote, had the Prime Minister's full confidence. The Prime Minister was also keen to stress his integrity. However, in the past, he hasn't seemed too bothered by breaches of the ministerial code. This exchange between Tory MP Bim Afalami and journalist Aisha Hazarika took place on the BBC's Politics Live.
Suella Braverman was sacked because of breaching the ministerial code. Then within 6 days, she's back in under Rishi Sunak. If he is really going to follow this mantra of integrity and really believing in the ministerial code, then he has got to revisit Suella Braverman and he's got to be very tough with Dominic Raab. Do you agree?
Well, I think Suella, the point about Suella has already been made, and
she breached the ministerial code.
And that has been accepted under the previous, she was left under Liz Truss's administration.
For 6 days.
And then the Prime Minister said she's decided to, she's owned up to her mistake and she won't do it again, and then he reappointed her on that basis.
So do you think Nadeem Zahawi should be allowed back in if he says, look, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done that? Do you think he should be allowed back in?
Well, no, but that's not really the point. You've got to look at every individual circumstance. I don't think we should live in a world where in public life where if somebody makes a particular mistake, and I repeat, I'm not talking about Nadeem Zahawi, I'm talking more broadly. If somebody makes a mistake in public life, that means they're banished forever. I don't think that's a sensible view.
There's a big difference between being banished forever and being banished for 6 days. I think there's some middle ground that could be found there. In any case, Zahawi hasn't been the only member of Sunak's cabinet under recent investigation. Justice Secretary Dominic Raab is currently being scrutinised for complaints of bullying against him made by between 24 and 30 civil servants. That inquiry is due to end in the next few weeks. On the detail of that investigation, The Guardian reported this. Officials close to the inquiry are said to have been shocked by some of the claims that have emerged, including individuals being physically sick before meetings, regularly in tears, and in more than one case, left feeling suicidal as a result of the alleged behaviour. Also on the horizon is the ongoing investigation into Sunak's former boss, Boris Johnson. He's subject to an MP-led inquiry into his conduct during COVID, with hearings expected to begin in the coming weeks.
The reason why I'm chortling to myself is that Bim Afalami clip was absolutely extraordinary. I've never seen somebody physically attempt to swallow their own tongue before. he was stuttering and stammering because his body wouldn't let the bullshit come out. You could see he was straining against every molecule and sinew and cell of his being. And that's because it is ridiculous. It's indefensible to say, on the one hand, yes, we stand up for integrity and swift action, but on the other hand, we'll drag our feet around Nadeem Zahawi, hide behind the pretense of an independent investigation, having previously said you stand by him entirely, then sacking him, whilst the whole time, Suella Braverman is warming her feet beneath the cabinet table, drawing up plans for her dream Rwanda flight after having previously been forced to step down for breaching the ministerial code, and then coming back just within 6 days. That is, I think, self-evidently ridiculous. But I think you raise a really good point, which is, what impact does this have in terms of the wider electorate? I don't think that terms like breaching the ministerial code have got a great deal of salience to people. That is a massive way of signposting this story doesn't impact your lives whatsoever. But I think it does two important things. The first is that having a miasma of sleaze around any government is bad for them, right? If they're a government that is otherwise doing things, being seen to carry out its manifesto commitments, doing a little bit of strategic helicopter money here and there, then maybe people are willing to look past or indeed forgive it. But in these kind of conditions where everybody is pissed off at the Conservative Party, that is certainly not going to help. And it's like I said last week, each individual story doesn't matter, but the accumulation of them does. So what we remember from the John Major era isn't specific sleaze stories, it is the overall climate of sleaze which engulfed the John Major government. And that is how I think people perceive politics. It is a vibes-based art, I think, rather than a science. The second thing, which is important, is what this does for Rishi Sunak's base of support within the party. He is a very precarious leader. Everybody knows that he was the second choice. He was basically the first alternate who didn't make the cheerleading squad. Even though Daddy made a sizable donation to the gym and bought everybody new pom-poms, all right? Like, he had been positioned as the favourite by pretty much everyone in the media, apart from the Daily Mail. He had been pretty well liked by many people within the lobby. He had a senior cabinet post under Boris Johnson, also a Brexiteer, and he couldn't get over the line. He was blamed by people for betraying Boris Johnson and also disliked by others for having stuck with him for so long. The difference in tone that he struck with Liz Truss made him quite unpopular with many of the party faithful. So his base of political support within the Conservative Party is very, very shaky indeed. It was a torturous and laborious exercise to get him to the position of sacking Nadeem Zahawi because, quite frankly, he wasn't sure whether he could afford to. And when it comes to somebody like Dominic Raab, who I believe backed Sunak in the summer's leadership contest between himself and Truss, it's going to be even more difficult for him. His allies are few and far between around that cabinet table and in the Conservative parliamentary benches. And he's going to find himself quite isolated, which is not good for an embattled and unpopular leader.